Welcome to another episode of Don't Call It Small. I'm your host, Natasha Foreman. If you don't know me and you have no clue what this podcast is all about, let me share a bit. I'm a lead management consultant at Foreman & Associates LLC, where we provide consulting and professional development services. And Don't Call It Small is where we talk all things business, share tips and news that you can use, and highlight the people and ideas behind the products and services that we buy. To learn more about our team, please visit ForemanLLC.com. That's ForemanLLC.com. Hello, everyone. I hope that you are having a blessed and productive day so far. I'm really excited about today's episode. We're going to do some business news and shout outs. Let's talk about what's going on in the world of business and of course, shout out some folks. Yes. So let's see. There's a quote, and I don't know who to attribute it to. I probably could have kept doing some digging, but I didn't. So if you happen to know who the person is that originally spoke these words or wrote these words, please share so that I can give them credit. It says, life is like a camera. Focus on what is important. Capture the good times. Develop from the negatives. And if things don't work out, take another shot. I love that. So if you know who originally said it or wrote it, please let me know so I can give credit. Now, let's look at some business news. Apple, those of you that are all things Apple, I'm not sure if you know, you probably do know that Apple extended their iPhone 13 production to India. So there's a bid to diversify away from China, all that's going on with our trade agreements and just the collateral damage that is expected to come and some blowback. So with that, Apple has extended that production to India. I did dig around and see that it won't be the iPhone 13 Pro model. That will still be outsourced from other markets, but the base model will be manufactured in India. And right now, India accounts for about 3.1% of Apple's global manufacturing base. And that was in last year. And that was up from 1.3% in 2020. So they're expected to reach between 5 and 7% this year. So there's going to be some growth there. And I had been looking online, and there's Megha Mandavia, and she's a columnist for the Wall Street Journal. She covers Asia. She said, to really compete with China, India needs a stronger domestic market, export-friendly policies, and better logistics infrastructure. So there's some work that has to be done in order for India to really have a competitive stake against China. But we inch up, right? We look at who's leading the charge, right? Last week we talked about that varsity team. So right now China's on varsity, and India's inching their way up the teams to get there. I was looking at how much Apple actually earned from India last year. And last year they earned the highest ever for fourth quarter, $2.09 billion in India, despite selling a third units compared to Samsung, a third less units. So Samsung outperformed them as far as sales, like having more units sold, but Apple still had their highest year ever. Just from their sales in India. So it's interesting. And we'll have to just kind of look and see how Apple maneuvers through this global landscape and how they deal with all the politics in that macro environment that they're, all global enterprises have to deal with. But of course, when you start outsourcing, your production to different areas, you are a little bit more sensitive to a lot of those macro environmental factors. So it'll be interesting to see what they learn, how they grow, and what they apply. Moving along, we have Etsy, and I'm sure that you probably saw that. I know we blogged about the Etsy strike, and I'm sure you've probably seen it throughout social media and the news, but these Etsy sellers, a lot of them have joined forces to strike over the fee hike. So there was a rise from 5% to 6.5%. And back in 2018, well, initially the fee was about 3.5%. Then in 2018, they hiked it up to 5%. And then this week it's at 6.5%, which, of course, a lot of the sellers have complained because that's a 30% increase. And, there's all these different sides to that. In, our blog, we discuss those various sides. One analysis that I had, found was from Tyler Turk, who had said that, if you look at it, Etsy, yes, they have their fees, their marketing requirements, and then they have these hoops that you have to jump through to become, a star seller. And so a lot of people have issues with that. But then, as Tyler pointed out, when you look at Shopify, well, they have fees and limited checkout opportunities. And as he stated, a cannibalistic ecosystem of apps that sellers must build their sites with. And then he compared Amazon, and he's like, Amazon owns your customer. And so they can drop you, at the blink of an eye, like a light switch. And so you really don't have much say when it comes to Amazon. You literally are, paying to have access. So like there's kind of these flips when you're looking at the different options. And I think that's what a lot of the creatives, because you have folks that are creating these works of art, and they are sharing, and they want to be able to have a marketplace to do so that they can afford, so they can actually turn a profit and keep reinvesting in their business, but also so they can have some of the freedoms that many of us, that when we say that, oh, I want to start a business, most of us are saying so because we want to have a sense of freedom, whatever category of freedom that is. And, as we pointed out in our blog post, another perspective to look at is from Etsy's perspective. Okay, if it's been 4 years since we've increased our fees, is it understandable to think that, okay, maybe every 2 years we'd see a slight uptick, or, is it acceptable and that it's now? From what I have found in, my digging around, both sellers and Etsy benefited greatly from the pandemic as more customers turned to Etsy for purchases. And so with that, I think that's probably why there is some pushback with some of the sellers that, Etsy greatly benefited as well, because it drove, traffic was, drove up their sales, and you start seeing more people that become sellers through Etsy. So, look at that. There's another perspective is from Etsy's, competition. Are they sitting back like sharks waiting, in the murky waters? Because in what ways can you then position your business to say, hey, you're not satisfied with Etsy, we'll come over here, but as I just shared that quote from Tyler Turk, said that those other competitors are not necessarily bringing you the value and the environment that you truly, will thrive in, or how you feel, right? So what can you be possibly lured from? And how many Etsy sellers can actually really afford to uproot themselves from Etsy and to have a store through another platform? There are various perspectives that have been shared that whether you are, a crafts person and you're selling through Etsy, or you're selling any type of product through another company's platform, you need to make sure that you are creating your infrastructure, that your revenue stream is not solely through that platform. So that you're basically, it's just one area where money is being generated. So it's almost as though if you visualize yourself as having a multi-store, right? So if you look at, if you're selling off of Amazon and Etsy and Shopify and this place, and you have, your own website where you have an online store, and so you're giving customers opportunities to access you in different ways, you can look at it that way, versus if you're only selling through Amazon or if you're only selling through Etsy, you really do have yourself restricted and handcuffed to that, and you're at their whim. So there's some different, ways of considering how this can be a great lesson for not just Etsy sellers, but for, sellers, hobbyists, business owners on all levels, right? From the newbie to the seasoned, and looking at, how you have greater control over, the inflow and outflow for your business. So there's some different things that can come into play that you have to really, really take in consideration, because you need them, they need you. It'll be interesting to see, what will Etsy do? Is Etsy going to bow down to it, or Etsy just going to just go ahead and say, okay, well, you're striking for 1 week. Can we take this 1 week hit? Yeah, we'll take it. That's a possibility, right? It's 1 week. And it's not all of the Etsy sellers that have joined this. It's not, so with that, we'll see. I did notice some of the articles that I ran across, some of the sellers that said, after the strike, they would go right back to Etsy. So if you're in, leadership at Etsy, you're probably also waging that bet as well. So they're going to have this, and I'm just paraphrasing and putting them in my own little spin on. Okay, so they're going to have this temper tantrum for a week. All right. We still have all of these other sellers that are still active on the site. So we're fine with that. They got to have their say. We're still going to keep the percentage the way it is. If they don't like it, they can go elsewhere. And, I've already given an example of what an Etsy seller's already explained about the competition for Etsy and how it's really framed up. And from, what I've seen is that when you're looking at this craft environment, the craft sphere, Etsy really does present an environment, an ecosystem that other competitors really can't get a footing in. And I had read where Amazon had tried, but they didn't have the magic sauce that Etsy has for that. So I do know that the announcement came from the company the beginning of the year, earlier this year, that they were going to be doing this in April. So it's not as though it was just sprung on them like this, on Monday. And then they're like, what? So it'll be interesting to see how that dynamic rolls out. We'll keep focusing on that and learning from the lessons in real time and how it can be applied for all of us, because we have our customers, we have our vendors, we have these different relationships, because it's all about relationships. And in what ways are we sacrificing one relationship for another? Or what ways, are we not really taking the time to listen to those that we're in a relationship with? And so, there's some ways in which we can really gather on how to proceed for our own interest in our own businesses. Now, attention Kmart shoppers. Wow. Did you guys hear that Kmart is fast approaching that corporate grave. Like, they've already have the grave. Like, they've already got their plot, set out. It's just it hasn't been, dug and prepped. They haven't been put in it. But, gosh, it's like, it hurts your heart, especially when you grew up with some of these companies and you know that unless there is some major shift, they won't be in existence in a few years. The company was founded in 1962, and of course, they had a different name based on then they became named Kmart. But at its peak, they had over 2,000 stores nationwide, and now they got 4, and then April 16th, they're gonna only have 3. One of their New Jersey locations in Avenel is gonna close. There will only be 3 Kmarts in the entire United States of America. Let that really sink in? At their peak, they had over 2,000 stores. Let's really look at this. Kmart back in the day was the Walmart of today. Like, does that make sense? Like, we see Walmart, and Walmart just has this presence in our communities, in the country. That's what Kmart used to be for us. Like, whoa. And it's like, you just didn't know. Like, we talk about how people suffer. You don't know about your friend. They always say check on the, your strong friends. I think a lot of times we don't think about the businesses, and I think a lot of businesses don't think. They think we're too big to fail, or we're good, or we're great. And they've been suffering for decades. I mean, they've had their huge mountain of debt, right? They've had a lot of management missteps. In 2002, they had to file Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Then, they're dealing with the emergence and the influx and the flexing of the muscles of Target, because here Target's they're hipper, right? They're hipper, they're sleeker. Walmart is cheaper. And who could have thought that somebody could come in and be cheaper than Kmart, right? But Walmart comes in, undercuts them. And then let's not even talk about the devastation that Amazon has added to the mix. But Amazon has really been, slapping up a lot of folks, coming in and encroaching in a lot of people's backyards, and coming and putting their muddy shoes on everyone's sofa, like Dave Chappelle when he pretended to be Rick James in the Chappelle show. I don't know why that just came to my mind, but we have seen this time and time again. And the thing is that this should be like a rallying call for these other companies, including the Walmarts, including the Amazons. Don't ever think that you're so big that you're not that you're indestructible, like that you cannot fail, that you cannot die. Like, yes, you can. It's like, Kmart was acquired by Sears. And so where people are like, oh, okay, like, all right, they're trying to do this revamp, and this will be a way for them to reimagine themselves and come back bigger, stronger. Okay, whatever. But this acquisition was led by a liquidator who would eventually dismantle both companies. And I was reading about that and some other different elements on a post that Matthew Loveland had shared. And I'm like, it's no different than, I think I shared in another episode, where you have these business dealings and you really don't realize that it's cutthroat. And so in a way in which you're trying to restructure your corporation, you don't realize that sometimes the very company that is supposed to be helping you in that restructure is basically sizing you up to see what parts they can cut away at, or what parts they can replicate themselves independent of you, and then be a competitor for you, which is what we definitely saw and see happen with Amazon and other companies where they're like, oh, I get to now come in and see the inside, right? And now I can now see, I see your weak spots and I can see how to leverage it for our game. It's like, ooh, I don't know, folks. Like, it's just, it breaks my heart because, you know, all these different companies, you know, the Circuit Cities and it's, oh man, you know, Toys R Us is, they left out, and I had said, oh, they're not really out, they're restructuring. People are like, no, they're gone. I'm like, no, they're restructuring. And then lo and behold, they restructured. But then the pandemic hit, and even though they had reduced their footprint from, you know, those 30,000, you know, square foot down to like 10,000 and sometimes less, it still took a hit on them. And then they're, you know, and I don't think that Toys R Us is going to be completely out of the mix. I think they're just going to restructure. They're just going to, you know, try a different way. Like the quote I had said, take another shot, right? Is there a way for Kmart to develop from the negatives and then take another shot? Like, how do you hold on with 3 stores? How do you reimagine that? I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm posing a question. If you're leadership at Kmart and you know we're down to 3 stores, what's the next chapter? How do we reimagine this? How do we keep it on? And it's like, what opportunities, you know, we talk about doing SWOT analyses and some people kind of blow it off or whatever, but what opportunities were possibly passed up? Some things to consider. So, hey, there's something I want to share with you guys. You know, I've been thinking like, oh, how often do we actually share about the various business events, you know, that's going on around the world? And I was like, oh, you know, we shout out professionals, we shout out businesses, but I want to go ahead and shout out some various events. If you know of any events happening, you know, within your city, state, or your country, please be sure to let us know. But let me go ahead and share these now. Consciously funded. I mentioned consciously funded through my friend Lavanya Jones, and they're accepting applications for the 2022 summer fellowship. They have applications from HBCUs, those are historically Black colleges and universities, and tribal college students. So students from HBCUs and tribal colleges, you can get expert training to build a business or media tech solutions to achieve equitable and more sustainable future for your community. They have there's going to be, the fellowship is 10 weeks. So you're going to be doing 10 Saturdays during the summer. There's going to be 4 social impact tracks and a demo day and internships. You need to apply by April 30th. Let me say this. Please don't wait till April 30th. Don't even wait till April 29th. Come on. Don't wait till the 11th hour. Murphy will make a believer out of you. So visit consciouslyfunded.com. I'm also going to give you the link for the application as well. This will be in our podcast description, and of course it'll be on our blog and social media as well. So students from HBCUs and tribal colleges, please submit your applications for the Consciously Funded 2022 Summer Fellowship. Next up is SBA, Small Business Administration, the U.S. Small Business Administration's. They have a National Small Business Week, May 1st to the 7th, and they're hosting a national virtual summit in collaboration with SCORE. And this will be Monday, May 2nd to Thursday, May 5th. It's free. Hey, if it's free, it's for me, right? And you can access critical federal resources, learn new business strategies, meet other business owners, and chat with industry experts. So visit sba.gov/NSBW. And then another event that is also coming up, this one's in Australia. It's called Connect 22. Reconnecting in 2022. So they are pivoting from this pandemic in a positive way. Connect is an annual event for Supply Nation, and this is for their Indigenous business sector in Australia. It's May 25th at the International Convention Center in Sydney, Australia. The event brings together Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander businesses, corporate organizations, and government departments to foster new business opportunities and celebrate the success of the sector. I'm just really thrilled to be able to share this news with all of you. So those of you that are wanting to do business with the Indigenous business sector in Australia, this will be a great opportunity. You can visit connect.supplynation.org.au for more details about how to register and get tickets for that event. And then last but definitely not least, let's do our shout outs to our professionals and these great businesses that they are working diligently to build and grow. We have Ashkan Royi, and I hope I did not butcher your name, out of Houston, Texas. And oh my goodness, absolutely beautiful work. Ashkan does dance, commercial, and fine art photography, and is Houston's most well-known dance photographer. You can visit on Instagram at Ashkan Image, ASHKAN Image, and then for fine art, you can go to Ashkan, ASHKANROAYAEE. And then the Linktree website, the link is Ashcan Image. So Linktrees, and I'll provide that link for you as well. Which is really cool that I love, and I wish that more photographers did this. I used to be a photography consultant, and this is something that I think would be very valuable for a lot of photographers, as well as videographers, is that Ashcan has a photography studio workshops where you can learn photography and photography business strategy. And if you are really trying to grow and develop as a dance photographer, fine art photographer, why not learn from one of Houston's most well-known dance photographers? So definitely check out Ashkan. And then next up we have Dirt Dog hot dog joint. I think I'm always going to find a source that's food related, right? I love my arts, and I love my food. And Dirt Dog originally, made for LA is their slogan, but they've expanded to Las Vegas, and so they have dine-in, takeout, and delivery. And in LA County, they're in LA and Pasadena and Downey and Long Beach. Their main location in LA is at 2528 South Figueroa Street. Those of us that are from LA, we say South Fig. So you're like, it's on Fig. We don't say the whole Figueroa. But 2528 South Figueroa in LA. And you can find them at dirtdogla.com. Their locations in Vegas, they're growing in Vegas. They've got Southwest Vegas. They're on the Strip. They're now on Fremont Street. I got excited when I saw that. I'm like, whoa. And they'll be coming soon to Sahara Ave. And I think I saw they're having a second location on the Strip. So Dirt Dog is not playing. That the demand must be so great that they're like, we got to be able to get these locations open, spread across the Vegas region. I'm excited for them. So on Instagram, you can find Dirt Dog LV if you're trying to find all things Vegas, and Dirt Dog LA for all things LA County. On Facebook, they're at Dirt Dog and Dirt Dog Las Vegas. And once again, the website is dirtdogla.com. If you love hot dogs, all things hot dogs, everything that could be associated with a hot dog, check out Dirt Dog. And then, of course, I got to bring in my tech realm, we have Devontae Durr, and Devontae and I have worked together, and I've sent Devontae business before, and so I'm shouting out Devontae Durr, and I've mentioned Devontae as well through this podcast. He's got Free of Code by Durr Domains, so he's got his two entities, and you can create a website today, #free of code, where you don't have coding isn't required. They have web hosting, cloud hosting, website design, hand-built widgets. You can also compare Free of Code to WordPress and Squarespace, which I like that they have that, so you can see a comparison and then make the best determination for you. There are no limitations on the number of pages and traffic and storage for your website. You can build big sites that load fast every time. They have 24/7 site monitoring with hacker protection and automatic backups. They have a 99.99% uptime guarantee, which means basically no downtime. So check out freeofcode.com and durrdomains.com, DURR domains.com, because yes, Devontae has an where you don't have to go through, we won't say which company names to get your domains. You can purchase your domains directly from Durr Domains. Is that not awesome? I love it. See, folks, this is how you turn around and you look at a market and you're saying, okay, what's there, what's not there, what can I do, what can I bring to the table, what am I good at, what do I like? And from that, that's how you can then, build your business or your side hustle until it becomes a business or just stays a side hustle. I know quite a few people that have their 9 to 5 and they have another business and they're like, I love both worlds. I'm holding on to both worlds. And so these are the different ways that you can be able to do what you love and share it with other people. And there you go. So I hope that you will support these businesses. I hope that if these events that I've shared, that if they are up your alley, that if they're in your wheelhouse and your backyard, that you'll be able to attend them, whether they're virtually or in person. So I hope that's something that you will consider. And that music, you already know what that music means, don't you? Don't you? It's that time. I can't believe it. It's already that time. Oh, it's time for us to wrap up and go our separate ways. Until next week. What are we talking about next week? I don't know. You'll have to come and see. If you guys have any questions or suggestions, you guys can always email them to us at don'tcallitsmallbiz@gmail.com. You can also go to ForemanLLC.com /podcast. And with that, you'll see that we have a form that you can fill out to provide us with questions or suggestions for the show. And I have there's something that I really want to be able to stress and to share with all of you is the importance of just reflecting in this time. We're going through a lot of stuff and making sure that you're grounded. But there's two things I want to say is that motivation is what gets you started. Habit is what keeps you going. And a quote from Richard Branson says, clients do not come first. Employees come first. If you take care of your employees, they will take care of the clients. So just be mindful of that, as we're going through the ups and downs of life and the cycles of business. With that, be sure to check us out on Facebook at Foreman & Associates and on Instagram and Twitter at ForemanLLC. Our podcast Twitter handle is It Ain't Small, and our podcast Instagram is Don't Call It Small. Be sure to follow us, share us with your friends, family, and colleagues, and please follow me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn at Natasha L. Foreman. Reach out to me, say hello, share your story. I look forward to meeting you. I want to make sure I give proper credit for the song. This is Higher Up by Shane Ivers. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to the Don't Call It Small Business Podcast. and for sharing these episodes with others, and for your continued support. Don't forget what I tell you on each and every episode. Don't call what you're planning, thinking, dreaming, or doing little or small. Go big, go bold, or go nowhere. I will see you here next week for episode 70. What? Have a super awesome day and week, everyone. Take care.